Hello, everyone, and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where we talk with interesting people across the internet about Dungeons and Dragons and Idle Champions. And usually, Treavor is in this little box, but once again, I have the pleasure of taking over. Why is it a pleasure? Because I get to talk to the amazing Mark Hulmes. Welcome.
It's me. I've been on this show many times.
This is 3, 4?
It's like a bit. Well, it's weird because we were doing streams with Idle Champions before Idle Insights was a thing. So
Yeah.
feels even longer. Like there were times when we were doing a whole stream on our own, and it was it was a long time. But yeah, this is must be like the third or fourth or fifth time that I've done a stream now with y'all.
You,
So love it. I love it.
you might be one of the rare people who have been on a version of this show with every host, because I think you've talked with Dylan,
Yep.
and were you on with Todd?
Yep.
Up, and I know you're on with Treavor, and so here you are with me, and I'm just the backup. So I think you win.
Team achievement unlocked 100%. 100% Idle Insights unlocked. I've done it.
There you go. I think B Dave might be the only one who might be close, might be a little close, but
Yeah.
you know what? It's fun to have you back, and we just had you recently on Peyton Slay, and so we're happy to have you whenever you can come on by.
Yeah, well, it's always a pleasure chatting to you, my friend, and chatting with the whole team. And it's always a good time.
It is. And hey, if you are watching at home, we are live. So we will be taking questions in chat. We've got the amazing Gabe in our chat grabbing questions, and we'll save them in a little backstage document for the end of the stream. So go ahead and put question in big capital letters if you have a question for Mark about all the wonderful things that we're going to be talking about. And
So many things.
So
So
many
many things. Or anything. I'll answer a question about anything, really.
Gauntlet thrown. All right, chat, be nice. But we'll start with the main reason you are here, which is Miria has a new skin.
Yay! My girl, she's got another skin. I love it.
Yeah. So for those who might not have seen the show or are new to Idle Champions, who is Miria?
Yeah, so Miria, and I'm gonna butcher her elven surname. It's Elethrian. Elethrian. Miria is a character I played, or we did a show called Fury of the Black Rose, which was set in the Dragonlance universe. And because I am normally a dungeon master, I DM a show called High Rollers, and I've DM'd a lot of other shows here and there. But because I'm mainly a DM, I actually got invited to come and be a player for a change. Yay!
Yeah.
And so Miria was the character I created for that, and I did a ton of research into Dragonlance and really built up a quite a lengthy backstory for her, way too much. But she is an elven necromancer, and she was once a servant of Lord Soth. She got betrayed. She managed to escape, and then kind of went all in on, well, I'm out for myself now. She's kind of that classic lawful evil, but a kind of good member of the party. Like she's got like a set of rules. She's got her own, sense of honor, and she will look out for you if you are good to her and things like that. But she's also very much out for herself and power and things like that. And she's a ton of fun to play. She has a cool skeleton arm. I captured Lord Soth's soul in a soul cage. There was a ton of fun stuff. A ton of fun stuff has happened. But she's great.
Absolutely. And also, and I think I've mentioned this before, a prime example of how to play evil in a campaign with a bunch of other people who are not necessarily evil, because I know that comes up in D&D all the time.
Yeah. Lots of good characters. In fact, my friend Rhiannon from High Rollers was playing Sentry, her incredibly lawful good paladin, who is the nicest, or maybe more neutral good, maybe, but very, very wholesome, heroic Optimus Prime style hero. And actually, our characters got on. I think I creeped her out a little bit here and there, but generally it was, and that was kind of my goal, is when I kind of got asked on to do the show, I really wanted to provide an example of that. I wanted to be I am going to play a character that shows you can be an evil PC in a good party and get on with everybody and contribute to the group and, make it work. And that was really something I wanted to do, because I feel a lot of people struggle with that. I think that's quite a hard thing to pull off well. And some people make some mistakes and things like that. So yeah, I wanted to try and do that, basically.
And I think it's that idea of evil is not necessarily the mustache twirling. I want to backstab everybody in the party. It can include having friends and companions and working together towards a goal. You just, are a little more self-centered about your goal. That's all.
That's how I always view evil. Like for me in a game like D&D, evil is actually kind of synonymous with selfish and
Mm.
good synonymous with selfless, right? Like if you are and if you're neutral, you chop and change what you are depending on the circumstances or whether it's, I'm going to be selfless for the people, maybe you're like lawful neutral, but against, this other thing, I'm going to be more selfish, right? But yeah, I think for like me, I definitely played Miria as Miri, sorry, Miria. Miri is the nickname. I played her as a very selfish character. Like she wants power, she wants to be safe, she is driven by her own goals, but also that need of, she'd been betrayed, she'd been hurt by other people, she'd been tormented by others. And so that need for companions to feel safe and have people that she could trust to have her back. And I think that that was actually a really good motivator for an evil character because it meant I had to trust the other members of the party. There is also an element there of like, well, these very naive fools, they're very naive or they're very sort of like sweet. Maybe I can use them. There is a little bit of a kind of manipulation and using element there to them as well. But that's, not always necessarily like the heart of it. Sometimes it was a genuine desire for companionship and a desire for people that she could trust. Just whether or not she would give those people up for power then becomes the next interesting moral quandary, right? Of like,
Yeah.
ooh, it says she'll give you loads of power if you sacrifice one of your friends. Ooh, that's a good deal. Maybe I'll take that up. It's that kind of, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you've come up with this character and you've written this wonderful backstory and you've had a chance to play her and kind of ruminate over everything about what you've been able to do. And then Idle Champions comes up and says, say, so Fortune's Wheel means that you get to change everything about Miria. What would you like to do? I'm going to go ahead and pull this up.
Yeah.
So this is the latest skin that's available for Miria, which is the Tiefling Glitch version, which I've got up on the screen, not just her, but your zombies who also got a little bit of a makeover. So what kind of story did you come up for Tiefling Glitch Miria? Tell me about creating her.
Well, it was like so the way whenever we do these skins, like it always involves basically sitting down with V, sweet V, and having a big conversation about like what is this going to look like, and we did the same for the Spelljammer pilot Miria as well. Like, and sometimes there's a theme. So with the glitch, it was like, okay, great, like let's change things up, but what do you want to do? And it was really, I was thinking like, well, what would fit Miri, right? Like, there's no point making her into something that I didn't feel would be kind of true to that character. Although it's a glitch, you still want to keep some of that essence of that character there. And I love tieflings. I love the design of tieflings. I love the look of tieflings. And so that was like just a natural. I was just like, a tiefling. I don't know why, but I just felt like really strongly that that could be a fun one, with the long hair, with the white hair and everything else would be like a really nice fit. And then we were thinking like just really hard about classes because I was like, man, like I don't want it to be like another like, a warlock or a sorcerer. It's too close to being a wizard. Like cleric, it would be so easy to just fall into the necromancy thing again. Like what could we do that would be different? I didn't feel like a fighter or like a tanky kind of character would fit. There was a moment when I was kind of looking at like maybe like some sort of like fallen paladin could be quite cool. But then talking to V, we actually stumbled on the idea of a monk, and I had been playing a monk in another campaign with a good friend of mine, Joe Fudge, and I really enjoy playing monks. I love martial arts. I love a lot of that kind of influence and inspiration there. And it was the way of the way of the long death monk, I thought, because I was like, oh, cool, still bringing in the death and the necromancy element there to it. And also there are very few monks in Idle Champions, so we were like, whoa, that's a great fit. Like I always like to try and find, I'm the kind of player that like I'll let everybody make their character first, and then oh, okay, we don't have like a character who's going to be able to do this. I like to fill that kind of gap and feel like I'm providing like that missing piece of the puzzle a lot of the time. So that was really nice, just be able to be like, oh, cool, we don't have a lot of monks. Great, I'll play a monk. I'll make Tiefling Mirria monk kind of thing. Just on the physical design side of things, that kind of element to it. Yeah. And then we started, like talking about monk, and I really like the idea of kind of tapping into as an inspiration, like the idea of Oni and things like that, and these kind of demons. Not kind of going into like making it very obviously culturally appropriated, but just taking some of the inspirations, the design elements there of like, that kind of the horn style, and like maybe making her a little bit more human looking rather than like red skin or blue skin or anything like that. And just kind of tying it in with that kind of aesthetic. So yeah.
Yeah. And I totally get the whole let everybody else pick their character. And for me, it's less what are we missing and more I have that problem in where if I have the entire world to choose from, I don't know where to go. If I have a blank page, I don't know where to start. But oh, you've all picked these things, so that helps
Right.
narrow my choices, and I can make one now.
Yeah, I'm the same. And it's why I like games. Like, I feel like, like I'm terrible. If you give me like an open world game and you just drop me in a game and you go wherever you want, I'm like, oh no, there's too much choice. There's too many things on the map. Oh, I'm overloaded. Whereas
Yeah.
if I got a nice kind of like, cool, here are the walls. They will open up, but for now, we're gonna put some rails on, and you can. I'm like, great, this is perfect. This is what I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Um, it was the same when making Miri in the first place for Fury of the Black Rose, because it was like your character is going to come from the world of Dragonlance. This is going to be it. You're going to have to fit into. I was like, great, okay, these are giving me some elements to work in with. Great, cool, I can work with this.
Yeah, definitely getting that signpost at the beginning of like, here is the world, but you should really go that way. I think
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3, I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people really like that as a D&D game is because it seems to be very good at giving you the sign point. Hey, go in that direction and do this thing. But if you want to go wander, you can.
Yeah,
So,
and I think with Baldur's Gate as well, it's that like how you go about doing that thing. It's
yeah.
like, okay, you need to go here and do this, but how you get from A to B and how you interact with all the things on the way, that's up to you. And to me, that's the perfect kind of RPG experience, right? Like when we do High Rollers and our big second campaign that we did, Erois, which is probably our biggest, most well-known campaign. I told my players, I was like, the way that works best for me is that kind of what I would call the Mass Effect style of gameplay. The plot is quite linear and it's not on rails, but like I have a storyline in mind that I'd like to play through. But how you guys, the choices you make, the interactions that you have, that is going to have the spider web effect. Like you have free choice to do whatever you want, and I will make it work, and it will play in, and the choices will have consequences and effects and narrative. But ultimately, there are tracks that are laid out at least. You might choose to go in different directions or pull the lever and switch it onto different tracks, but you know, how you get there is really where all that choice comes in.
Yeah. And going
Yeah.
back a little bit to you talking about playing a monk, I'm glad that you mentioned what, because I was going to ask, because I think monks are underrated, and I'm really
Yeah.
hoping with the new version of the player's handbook and everything coming out that monks are going to get a little more love, because my Astral Arms monk, man, is one of my
Oh,
favorite characters.
dude, me too. Like I literally, so the game that I played in with my friend Joe Fudge, I played a Astral Self monk,
Yes.
well, and I'm a big fan of anime and I'm a big fan of things like that. And he did this really cool Greek and Norse mythology inspired world.
Ooh.
Um, and it was like really cool. It kind of blended the two. There was like a middle world that kind of like joined the two up. And we were trying to desperately come up with a character. And we stumbled upon this idea of Greek philosophers like Socrates and Pythagoras and things like that. And what if they were all monks and their philosophies were like psychic projections that became the astral self, which is very similar to there's an anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with their stands. And I was like, yeah, I 100% want to do that. And we leaned into it hard. And he doesn't know anything about anime or anything like that. But famously, the characters always have like JoJo parts of their name, like Joseph, Joestar, or whatever. And so I called my Grecian, she was like a Grecian philosopher monk, and her name was Juno Jocasta. And so it was, and we played into this whole thing of like this very anime inspired, and she was the classic kind of hero, reckless, hot blooded, would just jump in and just a billion attacks at once, just and with the astral arms, it's even
Yeah.
better. I was just like, oh, it just gives me so much great feels, I was just like, yeah. And it was a really cool way of building into like the world that he was creating, and he was like, man, I'm gonna make this a whole thing in the world now. Like, yeah, like the Greek philosophers are known as these powerful astral monks, basically. Very, very cool. Very fun.
Yeah, that is super cool. And I remember you talking recently on one of the social medias about how much you love bringing in your inspirations. You know, hey,
Yeah.
I read this book and I'm gonna bring this in. I watched this anime and bring that in. And like, I love that. I love being able to take the stuff that you love and not only put it into the game, but then have you had those moments where you've like snuck something into the game and then one of your players are like, wait a second, hold on,
Yeah.
I get that
Oh,
reference.
yeah. And it's better when it's only like one player and like the others are like, what? I just thought it was this cool thing and they didn't get it. But like when you have that one player who's like looking at you like, I know what you've done here. And you're like, yeah, you do. No, I think it's true. I think that there can be like some people can be a bit snobby about it and they're like, oh, you based the character on Goku or whatever. And I'm like, listen, if that person loves Goku and they love Dragon Ball and they want to play Dragon Ball in D&D, I'm like, go for it because they're gonna have the best time, right? If you and then as a GM, you lean into it and you go, okay, Doku, the monk, you now have a rival monk who is called, Sajita, and they are and, like the two of you are rivals, and he's gonna constantly come up and fight you, and like that person's gonna be like, yeah, they're gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think that as well, like, and being a stream GM as well, there are a lot of times when I will put a reference into the game, my players will have no clue, but somebody in the audience is like,
Mm,
wait, is Mark putting this in, or is this a reference to this? And then I
yeah.
can sit there and nod and like, yeah. And I think that it's just fun to do. I think like at the end of the day, why do we play these games? Why do we do this stuff if it's not to have fun? Who cares if like you're bringing in a cool thing from a book or a TV show or an anime or a movie, you know? I think that that's a really fun thing to do. And it's also very, if you pick stuff that's very well known, it gives people like a really good sense of like, oh, cool, this is the kind of vibes that you're going with. Um, Going back to Erois, our previous big, sci-fi fantasy campaign, I made it quite clear early on. I was like, yeah, things like the Marvel's Avengers movies are a big inspiration for like what's going to be happening in these like final arcs. And I think that people went, oh, cool. And then they could get a better mental image of like what it looked like and what it felt like and how things were going to go. And I think you just give people that platform to stand on, really. And like it gives people a better understanding of it.
What's been your favorite reference to work on into a game?
I think I can. There's been so many. Like there's been so many. I can literally name a number of them off the top of my head. One I have to talk about because I know B Dave loved it as well. Was with Rhiannon who played Sentry. We weaved in a whole thing which was Sentry,
Oh yeah.
this robot paladin. She was like a Warforged paladin. We basically made it Transformers and like the old 1986 Transformers the movie. There were like quotes from it. Like I literally had this villainous Warforged be like, I'll rip out your optics and things like that. These like lines from the movie. And I know B Dave was just like, I watched that clip. I love you, man. Like, I love that you did this. And like Rhiannon was loving it. But none of the other High Rollers guys, they never watched that stuff as a kid. So they just went over their heads. They just thought they were cool robots fighting each other. And there was another one which is very kind of special to my heart, which is the very sort of like big final epic of our Rose campaign. There were a lot of references to my favorite video game of all time, Mass Effect, Mass Effect series. Loads of references to that in there, and also an anime which is very important to me, which is called Gurren Lagann, and I put in a lot of stuff which was a reference to that, and like things that I know none of my players and very few of the audience would have got, but there were a couple of people who were like, hell yeah. Like, yep, I know exactly what that's from, and that's so cool. And like I was there like getting choked up as I'm like describing these scenes because it was a very important anime to me and it was something that like really sticks with me basically. But yeah, no, there's a bunch of stuff. Like there's too many things to name.
I love that not only can you do that, but I think people get a little worried about, oh, I've quote unquote stolen this from this DM, or I've stolen this idea from over here, or I've stolen. You haven't stolen. We're all standing on each other's shoes. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. We're all borrowing from each other and making it our own.
So much. I think as long as you're not trying to say, I came up with this entire idea, this is mine, like as long as you're not lying about it and you're being very honest about like, yeah, I was totally inspired by Mark's class that he put into his campaign, or I was inspired by this boss fight that B Dave did, or like like a character that V made or something like that. Like I think if you're being honest about where that inspiration comes from, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And it's actually very sweet. Like people always ask me like, oh, I really love this thing. Is it okay if I'm using it? I'm like, hell yeah, of course it is. I'd be honored that you would use that. And it's funny as well because I talk with Matt Mercer about this a fair bit because he and I, we've been friends a very long time and we have a lot of the same taste in games and anime and movies. And the amount of times he has put something into CR or another game, and I am doing the exact same thing in my game, and we have not spoken, and I don't know what he's doing. Moons, man. Like, we're both obsessed with moons.
Oh
It's just,
yeah.
hey, why are we doing this? The amount of times that, like, yeah, like there will be a thing where the two of us have both put it in and we're like, oh my God, same brain kind of thing. But yeah, I think as long as you're honest about it, like there's absolutely nothing wrong.
Yeah, what is it called when two separate people come up with the same idea? There's like a term for that specific phenomenon of like two separate people
Oh
uh
man.
yeah, coming up with like the same invention, the same idea, and it's just, well, all of the world aligned to make this happen for you, and it also happened for that person over there cuz you
Is
know,
it serendipitous? Serendipity? Serendipitous?
yeah, I think it's some serendipity describes it, but there's like a specific word that's like
Yeah, gotcha,
the
gotcha, gotcha.
version of convergent evolution, but not the, not that way. It's the
Right.
same reason why every once in a while 3 movies will come out over the summer that all are about a giant
This,
asteroid hitting the planet.
yep, yep. It's just somehow, somewhere, somebody was inspired by the same thing and they've aged at the same rate and they've just gotten into the same thing. Yeah, it's so wild how that stuff happens. But yeah, no, I think it's a great thing to do and I think it's a ton of fun. And like I said, I always have an element of that, I think, with pretty much everything I do. I think that there's always like something where I've read a cool thing in a book and I've gone, oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love
And,
that.
well, and I've been lucky recently to be able to play with some new DMs, or DMs at least that I've never played with before, and being able to see the stuff that they do that's unique, or the ways that they tackle problems that a DM has to tackle, and be like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm just gonna write that down and remember that for later because yeah, that's helpful.
Man, that is like one of my biggest pieces of advice when people ask, like, oh, how'd you get better at being a dungeon? Or like, what tips would you give to improve as a dungeon master? And I'm like, go be a player in other people's games. Like, I learned so much from being a player in other people's games, just seeing the way that they handle things, or the way how they do a mechanic in a fight, or how they handle a certain situation. Like certain ideas, or just ways of dealing with things that the players throw at them. I think you can learn so much. I think playing under other GMs and playing other game systems are the two best ways to just make your toolbox bigger. Do you know what I mean? Like, equip yourself with as many ideas and solutions as possible, and then you can draw from all of that to solve problems or deal with situations. And I think that's how you get better as a GM overall. For sure, for sure. And
Agreed.
listen, the other one is listening to your players and being like, oh, they really like this thing that I did. Cool. I'm gonna remember that and do more of that. Oh, they didn't like this thing that I did. I'm gonna not do more of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think those three are like the key easy ways to improve as a DM.
Absolutely. Totally agree. That and
Mm.
snacks. Um, snacks, always useful.
Always.
I'm of the Brendan Lee Mulligan, I need to have snacks nearby if I'm going to be DMing because I need the energy, because it's a lot of energy, but super fun.
Yeah, I find that, like, I don't know you, but like for me, it's like if I hit the sort of 3-4 hour mark, I'm done. Like I'm like I could not do these like 5-6 hour games. I've done a couple now at D&D in a castle where it's like 8 hours a day, and like you have a break in between, and I'm at end of every day, I'm wiped, I'm
Yeah.
exhausted. Like it kills me.
I
Um,
can, but I have to draw a lot on my training as a classical musician doing like Wagner operas
oh,
and, days in where we do a show in the afternoon, a show in the evening. So it's like, all right, I'm spending 8 hours today just playing and being on. And yeah, there's going to be breaks here and there. Yeah. And so, like, drawing on those kind of skills, which I know are not necessarily like widespread skills.
yeah, no.
I went to college to learn those.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's a whole ass thing to be able to do that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's fun when it happens, and I do like some of the longer games when I can, but
Mm.
I slowly over the years I've not only learned to appreciate, but like really like tight 1 hour, 2 hour games. Just like let's everybody get in there and just
Yeah,
be on for 45 minutes and
Yeah.
then be done for the day. Like there's something really satisfying about getting that and then just doing it often, which is hard.
That's the other thing. Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing is doing it regularly and building up that stamina.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to Miria for
Yeah,
one more
absolutely.
moment,
Yeah.
because
I warned you. I warned you, Lauren. It was going to be Tangent City with me on here.
how dare you go off on tangents that I'd like to talk about? Oh, just the, oh. But so you described creating Tiefling Miria and like all of the talks and discussions that went into her creation. Have you thought about where she has gone off? Because I know you've talked about original Miria, the OG Miria. She's had this arc ever since
Mm.
you played her that you've kind of thought about and where she's gone. Have you thought about the Tiefling version of her, where she is?
I haven't really thought of that, no, because like for me, like the idea of the glitch thing, like because I've never really done like the whole sigil planescape thing or anything like that. It was not a setting that I really knew much about. So for me, it was like, oh, this is kind of a cool, like, for me it's like it, I do see it as like a skin in a video game of like, oh, it's a cosmetic skin. Like I don't see it as another person or a version of that character. I'm just like, it's a cosmetic. But no, so I haven't really thought about Tiefling Mirror, like Monk Mirror. It's also I think like because in my head, Miria is just that is Miria. OG Miria is that Miria. And it's very hard for me to think of like her as a different class entirely. Fun as a design concept, but I couldn't think of her as a fully realized character in that way, I don't think.
Mm.
It's like that OG is so cemented in my mind of like who that character is. So yeah, I don't think I've been able to really conceptualize on what that might look like. It could be fun to do as like a one shot, like playing her as a different class and race and things like that, trying to keep as much of the personality in there as possible. But I think I'd need to play as that character to like start figuring them out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes
Yep.
sense. Also, one last little thing. I love that the zombies changed as well.
Yeah, I love that. Love it so much. Got their little horns on. Perfect.
It's adorable. It's amazing.
Awesome.
We are at about the halfway mark, and so hey, if you're hanging out doing a lurkin work, which hey, we appreciate you, come on
Cool.
over to our chat because Gabe is going to be getting the giveaway going shortly, and so you're going to want to keep an eye on chat. Yeah, yeah, you can win 42 chests of your choice in the game, excluding Bahamut chests. If you are the lucky person who wins the draw. So keep an eye on chat because Gabe will be putting that word into chat somewhere. He's usually pretty good about picking a cool word. So keep an eye out for that. And meanwhile, I'm gonna switch back to regular Miria art. And so we've talked a little bit about high rollers and your campaigns that you've done, but you've got this brand new campaign, which
Yeah.
which I've already geeked out about because you got an entire orchestra to play the theme song. So thank you.
We had a good conversation on that on the Paint and Slay, which was great, and I'm just very honored that you were very excited about it. Yeah, no, we are currently in our, I think we're up to like episode 16 or something like that, maybe 17 in our brand new campaign. It's in a brand new world. It's completely separate from anything that we've done previously, and it's called Althea, the Dragon Empire, and it's set in a brand new world that I've created. It's all homebrew, all original. Concept being they are in a place called Ilmera, the Dragon Empire, and it is quite literally a kind of feudal society where dragons are the rulers. Like they are the nobility, in all their majestic might. I've done things like I've removed alignments from the dragons, so I've a couple of the colors and changed those around and stuff like that as well, just to kind of make everything work a bit better. And it's been a ton of fun so far. It's been a much more kind of I would say like there's a slightly slower pace to it, but that's allowed for like some really good role play, some really good world building. Like the gang are really invested in this town that they're exploring right now, and they're like really putting down like, oh, like we really like this NPC and we really want to learn more about this thing that's going on. And they've got a really great bunch of characters. Like the guys really went to town, really developed some really fun, cool characters that people seem to be really enjoying. So yeah, that's what we're doing right now. It's every Sunday at 5 p.m. UK time, which I believe is 9 a.m. over in Pacific time.
Yes. When the time zone and the daylight savings aren't making everything a mess.
Mess, yeah, but it's around that time. It's Sunday mornings for Americans, or Sunday afternoons, depending on which coast. But yeah, like 5 p.m. UK time. And it's live every Sunday, except this coming Sunday because we're taking the day off. But it's all on YouTube. It's all on podcast. And we're having a really good time with it. It's been, it's I think the fact that we have a brand new studio for it as well. Like we're in our, professional studio. We've got professional, really good quality audio, really good quality visuals. And I think starting with a fresh new world, a fresh new story, fresh new characters has been really, really good. And it was really well timed as well because we had just done our Baldur's Gate 3 one shot as well. And so a lot of people who watched that then started coming in. And we've got a really lovely community now. Like our Discord's really, active. We've got a lot of people doing art, lots of people doing cosplay. And they all get on really well. They all have a lovely time chatting to each other and stuff as well. So it's been really, really lovely.
That's awesome. And so, am I assuming correctly that the reason that you don't have a live game on Twitch on Sundays because I believe you're at a convention this weekend, right?
Yes. Yeah, we are in Insomnia 72, which is this Saturday. We're doing like a meet and greet during the day, and then actually in the evening, and this should be recorded, so it should go up on YouTube as well. But we're doing like what we're going to call side quests. So rather than one shot, we're calling it side quest because we're going to say that it is technically canon, but we just don't have an exact time and play of like when it takes place. So that way we don't have to worry about messing up our regular episodes. But yeah, so we're doing a special one shot or side quest at Insomnia, and we're actually being joined by, I reached out to our good friends Jennifer English, who plays Shadowheart, and Aliona Baranova, who was the performance director for Baldur's Gate 3. They're actually going to join us, and they're actually playing their first original D&D characters. They are playing characters that they've made. I've got their minis that I'm currently waiting to finish some gluing that I did for them. So I've got to prime them and spray them tomorrow morning and paint them tomorrow morning. But they've got their own original characters they're going to be playing. It's Aliona's first time playing D&D ever. It's Jennifer's second time playing D&D ever. But no, we're really excited to have those guys, and hopefully that will all be recorded. And yeah, I love doing live shows. Like live shows have always been a big passion of mine. I was a stage kid. I was a theater kid. So that's really fun to do.
So you've got the meet and greet and the live game. Anything else going on this weekend for those who might be going to the convention?
Just that. So we'll be there, yeah, just on Saturday. We're the only day that we're there is Saturday. We got a meet and greet, which I think is like 4 o'clock, and then we have the live show, which is like 6 o'clock. So it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock. It's like straight afterwards. But what we do have is, because like that's part of a convention, right? That's part of Insomnia. You have to go along to that. It's in Birmingham. But what we do have is at the end, near the end of this year in September, we are actually doing our first ever independent live show where we are going to be, and I know you're very excited about this because you and I are musical theater nerds. We're actually going to be at the Adelphia Theater in London on the West End, right by Charing Cross. And we're doing a live show there. It's a one-night thing on the 17th of September. It's a full 3-hour show. It's going to be a live side quest, effectively. It's going to be set in Althea with the characters. We might have a special guest. Maybe we haven't, we're still kind of figuring out exactly what the show is going to be. But like, yeah, tickets are available now. We've already had a load of people come in. We're really excited to have a great crowd there for it. And that's kind of a big deal. Like for me, like I said, is like, I'm going to be on a West End stage.
Yeah.
Not what I thought I'd be doing, but I'm still there. It counts.
100%. 100% counts.
Yeah.
Listen, there's plenty of people who had that one night on Broadway, had that one night on the West End, and it's on their CV forever because that's what you need. I had that one day in Carnegie Hall, and it's on my CV forever.
Yep, absolutely. As it should be.
Yeah. What I loved about the announcement, you put out a little video of all of you announcing and talking about the stream. And what I found was really cool and interesting is it starts almost by pitching, hey, if you don't know anything about D&D, if you've never rolled dice or and you're just interested, come and watch. So I'm going to try to figure out how to ask this. Are you trying to craft an adventure that is both good for the campaign, but also like, hey, here's an introduction to D&D?
I think my philosophy towards it is going to be, and I did this for the Baldur's Gate one shot as well, where my goal is you don't need to know anything about D&D to come and watch it and enjoy it. But also I'm going to teach you the very basics of playing D&D as it goes. Now, luckily, because the High Rollers guys are all experienced D&D players, I don't need to teach them how it works. So really, it's more of a case of teaching the audience, right? And again, most of the audience are probably going to be D&D fans, but the hope is, and this is quite, honestly, it's a very marketing thing of like, we might get enough people that come in and buy a ticket to see us because they love high rollers, right? But we also know that our audience is spread all over the world. People might not be able to come in. So actually, the hope is that maybe we can just catch some people who have like gone, oh, I've heard of D&D. Like, oh, what's like a live D&D game going to be like? Yeah, I'll go and watch that. Or people that, they went and saw Critical Role live, but they've never watched High Rollers, but they go, oh, like these guys, oh, I'll come and watch those guys. Like, yeah, like I know Mark, he was in that, thing, or like, oh, we've heard of High Rollers before, we'll go and check that out. So it's that kind of like trying to get, as many, we need as many people to come and see it as we can, because if this does well, we can go on and do other shows, and maybe we can do a show in the US, or we can do a show in Europe, or we can do whatever, but we need this show to sell out to do that, right? So we just want to hit as many people as possible. And so the aim is to create a really fun adventure that it's not going to be probably heavily connected to the campaign. I think I'd want to focus more on like making it a good show for everybody. But there will definitely be a lot of references and like nods for the community and like the fans who are going to be there and be excited about stuff. So that's kind of like the goal of it, really.
And you'll definitely have a chance at the end of the stream to talk about the ways that people can follow you. But in this moment now, if someone's like, yeah, that sounds cool, I should check that out, where should they go if they would like to get tickets to your show?
The link I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you go to High Rollers D&D on Twitter, if you go check out our latest video on YouTube or anything like that, check out any of our socials. We have been posting about the show. You can grab the tickets. I'm pretty sure it's a pinned tweet on our Twitter. You can go there and grab the link to it. If you go onto, I think it's like AEG presents, and then you search for like High Rollers, you should be able to find it there. High Rollers live show, you should be able to find it as well. But yeah, it's a long link that I always forget. But yeah, go check out our social media, and you can easily find links to go and get the tickets to that. And it'd be good. I think like whether or not you know High Rollers doesn't matter. If you know D&D, you'll have a good time.
I can say, having watched High Rollers for a very long time, I have no doubt it's going to be lots of fun. And also you get to play at the Adelphia Theater, which literally has centuries of amazing history.
Yeah. They currently have the Back to the Future musical on right now, which is kind of a big thing. It's like, whoa, that's cool.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's going to be pretty rad. And they're lovely. The theater people, I think that because we went down there and we met the theater people and stuff like that, and they were a little bit like, so what do you do? What's your show? And I was like, and he was like, oh, so you're going to have these tables, but are you going to be getting up and moving around? Like, and I'm like, no, we're going to be sat there the whole time. Oh, okay. So you don't need us to do any fancy lighting? No. Like, oh, he was a bit sort of like, okay, people are going to come see this? Hopefully, yeah.
People have come before.
Yeah, people are going to come and watch people sit at a table for 3 hours and pretend to be wizards and elves, and that's fine, and that's a great thing.
I think it is a full circle back to the original days of radio plays where people would go to a theater and literally watch people on the stage do a radio play, and where most of the time they're just standing around microphones. You got an FX person in the background, you got someone on the organ over there, and that's it. There's no other things going on. So I think this is storytelling back to its audible roots.
Oh, that's it, right? Like that is, if you break down storytelling, what is it? It's a bunch of people listening to somebody, one person or multiple people telling a story. And that has gone on for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. That has been a thing. So I think it goes back to those days. And I think it's, with something like TTRPGs, it is that kind of purest form of that almost, just with some extra dice and some silly made up rules. But yeah, no, it's very exciting to do. I know it was like one thing that for me especially, and I know Katie as well, like we were both theater kids and we grew up doing acting, so that this is like, whoa, this is cool.
And does that mean at some point in the future we're going to get High Rollers the musical?
Listen, if I could make something happen, it would be that. It would be High Rollers the musical and High Rollers the anime. Those would be the two things that I would get them made. I think everybody else in High Rollers would hate me if I made those things real. Because I don't know if that would be their jam, but I would love it. Maybe I'll just get other people to play the High Rollers in the musical.
And if you need some pit players for the musical, I have an oboist who would love to sit in that musical.
I know I might know one or two. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There might be a couple of us who are, musical TTRPG. It's like a lot of musical theater kids, like you were saying, ended up in this industry.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so we have a ton of questions.
Rattle
Thank
through. Hit me. Hit me.
Yeah, thank you to everybody for submitting your questions. I've got a bunch of them here. So, Foolish Genius 89 wants to know, how would Miria and the Althea crew get along?
Oh, I think that Miria and Ophelia, who is Rhiannon's character in Althea, would get on very, very well because they're both very undead focused. And I think Ophelia would very much appreciate Miria's approach to necromancy and her met and thinking about it. I think she would terrify Daisy, which is Katie's character. I think she would terrify Rowan, which is Chris Crott's character. Um, I think her and Xanthius, Tom Hazel's character, they have a shared interest in certain things, but I think that they would be very sort of trying to play one another all the time. And I think Kim's character Gruff would absolutely despise her, and so he would be so suspicious and would not want to trust her as far as he could throw her, even though he could probably throw her quite far.
She wouldn't let him get that close, though, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No,
It'd be a fun dance to watch.
yeah.
Cassia335 asks, and a couple of other people were asking about this because you've done a lot of cosplay and we've seen a lot of your pictures, and they want to know, have you dressed up as Miria before? Which I know you at least during the stream did.
Yeah,
but,
for the very first episode, yeah.
Yeah, and what's the most fun part of dressing up as Miria?
Yeah, so I did Miria for the very final episode of Fear of the Black Rose. Obviously there were limitations, like it was a very kind of thrown together thing. I couldn't do the skeletal arm and things like that. But I had the perfect wig for her. I had the elven ears, I had the black outfit and stuff like that anyway. The reason I have a lot of that stuff is because I have a LARP character who is Miri was very much influenced and inspired by, which I do 4 times a year. That character is called Morrigan, and she's very necromancy, doesn't have a skeletal arm, but is very similar vibes and everything else. Honestly, for me, the best part of it all is, I over the last couple of years, I've been very, very vocally exploring my gender identity. And those moments are a great chance to try different things out, like try a different hairstyle, try a different makeup technique. I enjoy the sort of, I personally enjoy the hyper femininity of it. Like that is like a side of me that I get to kind of unleash. And so, doing the bold makeup, trying to make it look as flawless and as different to how I normally am as possible, is a ton of fun. Yeah, I think that that's definitely like a big part of it for me. And yeah, like I would love to do a full Miri, like have somebody make the exact outfit, have a cool like skeletal arm effect, maybe with like a black sleeve with it painted on or something like that. I would love to do something like that one day. It's just finding the time to make all of that. There's just so much to do.
Yep, time and money. That's the hardest parts of all of our lives.
Yeah.
We had a couple of people asking about any plans for Miria in the future as far as one-shots and campaigns, and I'm assuming if anybody would like to follow you on your socials, if that happens, it sounds like lots of people would be very interested.
I would love that. And like I say this as well, is like if people invite me to 100%, like if people said like, hey, would you like to come and do this game? I would 100% try and bring Miri to do that because I love playing her and I love seeing her in those different environments. It's finding the time and also getting the invitation are the two limiting factors. But yeah, absolutely, I would play Miri again.
Awesome. Star Chaser 43 has an interesting question. Mark, you've been using the Crucible Dice, and they said they forgot the term specifically at the start of several episodes now. I believe you said you borrowed it from another TTRPG, which, hey, we were talking about that just a little while ago. How are you satisfied with how well it has been working?
Yeah, so to give some context to this, so I tried this thing, we introduced it into the Althea campaign, and it's called the Crucible of Fate. And it's actually inspired by a lot of other RPG systems use a very similar idea, but for me it came from the Edge of the Empire system, I believe, which is now owned by Edge Studios, which is a Star Wars game. But the idea is that you have a pool of points or dice or whatever it is, and at the beginning of every session, the players generate like randomly determine the balance of the pool, right? So in our case, every player rolls a d6. If they get a 1 to a 3, it adds a point to my side of the crucible, to the fate against them. If they roll a 4, 5, or 6, they get a point in their favor, and it's a d6. And the way that we do it is that for the players, they can spend those d6 to improve an ability check, an attack roll, a saving throw, or they can spend them to do other interesting stuff. Like they could create a piece of cover, like, this pillar falls down and it's going to provide us cover from the attacks that we're getting shot at. Oh, great. Spend a fate point and bam, that happens, right? Or like, they could say, oh, I want to spend a fate point, and I actually know this NPC from like way back in the day, and like me and him have got like a friend, like he owes me a favor. Oh, great. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And then on the other side is the GM. I can spend a point of fate to do things like add damage to a roll, to increase an ability check, to kind of make luck go against them. So like maybe it's like, well, actually you do know this guy and he does owe you a favor, but the last time you met him, something bad happened, right? And so now there's a bit of a bad blood. He owes you, but you've got to blah blah blah. Like kind of add some interesting twists to it. And the idea is that whenever the players spend a point, I get that point. And if any time I spend a point, the players then get a point. And if we both spend a point on the same thing, they basically burn each other out and they go out of the pool until the next session. And it's been interesting. It's definitely a system that sometimes works great. It's been particularly fun in combat, where I've actually had it so that like, enemies will have abilities that need me to spend fate points to use. So kind of like legendary actions, but they're maybe a little bit more powerful, or I can do multiple of them in a single, go. But they cost a resource for me to do. And then sometimes powerful enemies will have ways of stealing the player's fate dice if they don't spend them as well, right? And it creates an interesting thing because, there's a lot of maths around the, scaling of AC and attack rolls and everything else, and then damage to go back into the players. But it's been really fun for that. It's sometimes like if we have a session where we don't roll any dice, sometimes they just don't get used. But when they have been used, it's been pretty fun. If you like any kind of homebrew system, it'll get tweaked, it will get adjusted as we go. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. I think it adds something pretty fun to the game, and it's been working pretty fun.
And the fun thing about those kind of homebrew is you can literally tweak on the fly. If you run into a situation where you're like, this was a good idea here, but we'd really rather do it this way.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. The very first episode we did it with, I basically had it was a lot more sort of like you can do them, you can add them to any role, and you can do whatever you want with them, and the GM can spend loads of them at once, and you guys can spend and I basically afterwards, even the players were like, this is fun, but this was a bit too much. Like there was just there was blah blah blah, and I was like, great. And like I looked at some feedback online, I was like, you know what? Actually, everyone's right. I need to tweak this a little bit. Tweaked it, was pretty happy with the tweaks I came up with, went back to the place and they were like, oh yeah, this is way better. And like, it worked great. And like, even though we're streaming it, I was like, I can just change it. Like, it's fine. Like, I think there's a desire to like, everything has to be super polished and finished. Like the second that you introduce something. And I'm like, how is that possible? Like, unless I sat there and play tested it with a bunch of strangers or like people in community, which sometimes you just don't have time to do. I'm like, this is the perfect chance to test it. I'm playing with my friends who trust me. I trust them not to abuse it. It's the great time to try stuff like this out.
Absolutely. And I love DMing for people who are going to try out homebrew or bring their own ideas to stuff like that. Because yeah, if you're bringing an idea of something homebrew that you've got to the table and you're like, I want to try this out, I want to make sure that it works and it's balanced, that's a really good indication of like, this is going to be something that someone has thought about. Not just, I want the most powerful sword, but like, I want a cool sword that like does stuff that people are going to be interested in me having.
Exactly. It adds to the game as a whole. And the idea with this is because, in something like 5e, there isn't a lot of that more sort of narrative-led abilities and powers that let you do things like that. And I really like that in other TTRPGs, and I wanted to bring it in. And that's the other benefit of taking something directly from another game is like, well, I know it works quite well in that game, so I know it's a fairly stable system. I just need to figure out exactly how it applies to this game, right? So, yeah, it works really, really well.
Awesome. I'm going to throw this. This isn't really a question. I just found it very funny. We'll end off the questions with Cassie335, who wants to know, wait a minute, if Critical Role and High Rollers did a crossover, wouldn't that be called Critical High Rollers? Which...
Yeah. I mean, listen, I would love nothing more. If we could make that happen, like, I mean, honestly, the one episode I got to do with them a bajillion years ago is still one of my absolute highlights of favorite things that I've ever gotten to do in this career, in this industry. Like, I love that family. Like, I genuinely think of them as like family. Like, I love those guys. I have such a great time playing with them. I would love nothing more. And if we can have it, it can be called whatever it wants, as long as it happens. I don't mind.
Well, you know, if you at home would like to see that happen, the first thing is to make sure that High Rollers can have more live games at awesome theaters on London's West End. And so you should go buy some tickets. Go buy some tickets for some friend of yours that
I would
is in
greatly.
England.
Well, that's the thing that we've been saying as well. Like, even if you come along, some people are flying in, they're coming in from America, coming in from Europe, coming in from Australia. We've had a good few people. But
Nice.
also, I'm trying to say to people, like, if you've got a housemate or a brother or a partner who's like, they like D&D, but they've never watched High Rolls, bring them along, buy them a ticket, please. We need to sell tickets, please. So yeah, definitely, please bring anyone you can. We got a lot of tickets to sell, so please buy tickets.
Definitely buy tickets. Definitely check out High Rollers on Twitch and YouTube. If you want to see, if you've never seen a game before, absolutely check them out. Check out the Miria skin. Awesome Tiefling Miria, which I have a hard time talking about whenever I'm also trying to change the overlay. There we go. There's that wonderful new skin. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find more of your amazing awesomeness on the internet?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to chat with friends and pretend that it's a work. But people can find me. Generally, I am Sherlock Hulmes, like Sherlock Holmes, but with a U instead of an O. Sherlock Hulmes. There is either an underscore in the middle or an at the end. So it's Sherlock underscore Hulmes or it's Sherlock Hulmes underscore. One of those two things. Or sometimes there's not an underscore at all, and it's It's a little mystery that you have to solve to find me.
There you go. A puzzle for those of you at home.
Yeah, exactly that. Like a mystery for you to solve. But yeah, Sherlock Holmes pretty much everywhere on the internet. High Rollers DND, YouTube, Twitch, podcast, all of that good stuff as well. Please come and follow us. Check out our stream and our campaign and our journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Gabe for being our moderator in chat and everybody in our chat for hanging out with us today and offering some awesome questions. And we'll see you.
I just said thank you, chat. Sorry, I was just screaming chat. Thank you. Thank you, chat. Thanks for being here.
The call cut out your audio and I just saw you screaming about something. I went, I've just lost it. What happened? What happened? Well, there you go. Thank you. Thank you to chat. We will scream your praises as we leave and say, we'll see you next encounter. Bye.
Bye.